Hey y'all, welcome to a new What's for Dinner. So in today's video, I am going to be sharing 5 dinner recipes that I have recently made my family. So first up, I tried out a new one. This is a $1 million baked tortellini. So this was on a Monday and I had just got back from like a pretty big grocery shopping trip. Plus Mondays is one of my husband's days off from work. And I don't know about y'all, but those two scenarios combined normally makes me not want to cook. But I was determined on this day, but I was just going to pick something simple and pretty basic. So that's why I went with this recipe. So I started off by browning up 1 pound of ground beef. I seasoned it with onion powder, salt, and pepper, and then I threw in some freshly minced garlic. So this didn't put out a lot of grease, so I just kind of went in with a paper towel and kind of dabbed it around to absorb what was in there. You'll want to grab a jar of your favorite pasta sauce. We really like the Prego one, and me being me, I always like to add in a little bit of water, swirl it around to make sure that I get every little bit of sauce out. And I'm just going to let that simmer for a little bit. Next, I'm going to grab a package of tortellini. This one is our favorite, but I only buy it when it's on sale. And I had a $2 off coupon, so that was nice. I'm just going to cook that according to the package directions, minus 1 minute, because this will be going in the oven and I don't want to overcook it. So at this point, I have turned my stove off and I am just tossing the tortellini carefully into that meat sauce. I don't want to break it up or anything. And next, we are going to take this up a level by taking a block of cream cheese. I did pop that in the microwave for about 30 seconds. That makes it really easy to stir. And you'll also need some ricotta cheese. I measured out a 1/2 cup of that. So I'm going to season it. I'm going to add in 1 teaspoon of onion powder, 1 teaspoon of garlic powder, and a teaspoon of salt. Of course, you'll want to stir that together really good. Now, if you were to give this a little taste test, it's going to be pretty salty because that is what I did, and I thought that that is just way too much salt. But you just have to trust me when I say it works out perfectly in the end. Because for one, you are going to be spreading this out in like a thin layer. So you're only getting a little bit of it anyways. But also that like sweet pasta sauce and all the other flavors going on really balances out perfectly. So the next time I make this, I would leave that salt amount the same, and I recommend leaving it the same. But okay, so as you guys seen, I did spray my 9x13 casserole dish with some Pam just to ensure that nothing's going to stick. I poured in half of that pasta mixture. I added on that full amount of the cream cheese and ricotta, spread it out evenly, and now I'm just adding the rest of my pasta on top. And of course, I'm going to spread it out. So for the cheeses, I'm going to start off with some shredded Parmesan. I'm just using what is left in this bag. I had that left over from a couple recipes the week prior. And I'm also going to add on some shredded mozzarella cheese. Kroger had a really good sale on like the big blocks of cheese. So as soon as I got home from the grocery store, I went ahead and shredded that up. And it is good for several recipes. So I'm just going to get this tightly covered with some tin foil. And I'm going to bake it at 350 degrees for 30 minutes. Then I took off that foil and let it go for 10 additional minutes. And then I topped it with some dried parsley. So here's my plate. It cut into a perfect little square, and that's probably because as soon as that came out of the oven, I had to go and pick up the kids from school. So it sat there for about 20 minutes before I served it. But as you can see, I served it with some garlic bread and asparagus, and this meal was absolutely delicious. It is obviously like very similar to like a lasagna or like a good baked spaghetti, but if you watch my channel a lot, you know that I really don't make pasta bakes all that often. I feel like it's one of those things that you can get burnt out on pretty quickly, so anytime we do have it, we always enjoy it. I have been craving like a really good crispy chicken sandwich, and it is so much cheaper to make it at home, so that is exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to start by making my little buttermilk mixture that I'm going to soak my chicken in. So I just poured in some buttermilk, no certain amount, a few dashes of hot sauce. That Slap Your Mama one I found at a little gift shop in Tennessee while we were there, and it is so good. I can't find it anywhere where I live, but if you see it out, I highly recommend you grab it. But I'm also going to season the buttermilk with salt, pepper, onion, and garlic powder. I whisked it together really good, and I just have 2 boneless skinless chicken breasts. I sliced those in half to make 4 thinner pieces, and I'm just getting that covered in the buttermilk. I'm going to cover it with some tin foil, and that's going to go in my fridge to soak for a few hours. Overnight is best, but I didn't plan ahead, so a few hours will do the trick. But while that was soaking, I went ahead and made a dip to go for the side. So this is new to us. This is a fried pickle dip. It sounded so good and I had to give it a try. So to this mixing bowl, I have 1.5 blocks of room temperature cream cheese, a half a cup of sour cream, and a half a cup of mayo. I'm just seasoning it with some garlic powder, and then I measured out a teaspoon of some crushed red pepper flakes and a teaspoon of some dried dill. I'm also going to grab a handful of some shredded cheese, so maybe like a cup. I'm going to give that a quick mix, and then I'm going to dump in this full jar of dill pickle relish. This is an 8-ounce jar. Now, if you didn't want to use relish, you can definitely take just some of your favorite pickles and just give it a fine chop. So I'm going to get that folded in, that cheesy mixture, and that's going to get dumped out into a greased 8x8 casserole dish. And lastly, I'm going to take some of these plain panko breadcrumbs, and I'm just going to sprinkle that all over the top. That's going to go in the oven at 375 degrees for 30 minutes. For some reason, the middle of this did not want to brown, but I didn't even really care. We're going to serve it with some tortilla chips, and I will say that we liked it better at room temperature versus like piping hot, so I'm glad I made it when I did, and I'll give you my final thoughts on that dip here in a bit. But now I'm going to get started on my breading mixture for the chicken. So it's just some all-purpose flour. I'm going to season it really well with the salt, pepper, onion, and garlic powder. And I'm also going to do some paprika and a little bit of baking powder. And I like to use a fork to mix that together and get those seasonings distributed. And now I can finally start to bread the chicken. So I'm just going to simply take it out of the buttermilk and roll it around in that seasoned flour. I'm going to make sure that every inch of that is perfectly covered. And I'm going to really like press it in to make sure it sticks. I did have some vegetable oil heating up in my cast iron, and I'm just gonna dip those in, and I'm gonna let those fry for a few minutes on each side. And I will just, of course, repeat that until they are all cooked up. And those cooked up in no time. So now I can assemble my sandwich. So these are some brioche buns that I buttered and toasted up in a skillet. I'm going to add some mayo. And to me, a good quality pickle is what makes a good chicken sandwich. And this is my first time buying these Grillo ones. And these are hands down the best pickles that I have ever tasted. They have such great flavor. And I just wish that I found them sooner. But I'm glad I know about them now. But I'm also going to add down a slice of tomato. I always season that with salt and pepper. I'm going to do a little bit of lettuce. And, of course, I will add my piece of chicken down. And that is it. Does that not look beautiful? These tasted amazing, and it definitely hit the spot and cured my craving. And it really was easy to do. Now, as for this dip, so don't get me wrong, it was good and it got 8, but I don't think I would make it again because the only way I can describe it is it was just strange. It was just kind of weird. I don't know. It didn't really go together maybe. I don't know. Like if any of you guys have made this and you did something different and liked it, definitely let me know. Also, I know this is like a really heavy side dish for dinner, but the way I think of it is we're in the season of holidays and get-togethers, and I want to try out new like appetizer recipes. So of course, I'm going to try it out before I serve it to people. But yeah, I was just kind of disappointed. It's not what I expected. I don't know. Let me know what y'all think. Next up, I'm going to be making some crock pot French dip sandwiches, and I'm just going to go ahead and say that these were the absolute best French dips I have ever tasted, and most definitely my favorite meal out of this entire video. So I just have a small chuck roast. This was the last one left in my deep freezer. I don't know how much it weighed because it was in a freezer bag, but if I had to guess, probably like 2 pounds, maybe a little bit over. And I just seasoned it with salt and pepper all around, and I seared it in some vegetable oil for just a few minutes on each side, including the edges, and then I got it transferred to my crock pot. So in a mixing bowl, I'm going to mix together a can of beef broth, beef consomme, and a can of French onion soup, and also some red wine. So in this medium-sized mixing bowl, I'm just getting those cans dumped out, and if you know me at all, you know I don't do onions, so I am going to strain those out, but don't worry, I did not throw those away. I'm reserving those for Josh to eat with his sandwich. So I'm going to measure out a half a cup of the red wine, and I honestly think this is what the game changer was for the recipe. I've never cooked with red wine, but I think that's what made it so, so good. But I'm just pouring that over the beef. I'm going to get my lid added and I'm going to cook it low and slow. So I had originally planned on like 6 to 8 hours, but I came in around the 5-hour mark and it was fall apart tender. I'm sure it's because this was a smaller roast and this crock pot cooks stuff really fast compared to my other ones. So at that point, I took it out and shredded it in a separate bowl, and that's when I like remove as much fat as I can see is when I'm shredding it. And then I'm just putting it on these sub rolls. These are the sub rolls that I buy from the Walmart bakery. I almost always have these in my freezer because they freeze so good, and they thaw out really quick and you can't even tell they've been frozen. So I've just layered on the beef, and we're going to be using some provolone slices for the cheese. This is that same provolone that I was bragging about in my last video. I went back and stocked up on that because it's literally the best provolone I have ever tasted. It's the Private Selection brand. And this step is optional, but if you can't tell, I have been loving like buttering and toasting my buns recently, so I just did that to the top, and I'm going to put that in the oven at 400 degrees, anywhere from like 5 to 10 minutes. Meanwhile, I got Josh's like dipping sauce ready, so this was that bowl of onions. I just poured plenty of that broth over the top, and then we just had like the plain broth. But here's the sandwiches straight from the oven. The bread is nice and golden and buttery, and that cheese is like perfectly melted. So I had originally planned on making some homemade potato wedges to go along with this, but when the time came, I just took some frozen curly fries and slapped them in the oven, and that is okay. Life happens, plans change. It's all good. It went really well with this. And as you can see, I did cut the sandwiches in half just to make it easier to hold, easier to dip, and like I was saying, these were just incredible. Like, I have made some good French dips before, but this one stood out by far. Like, I will never look for another French dip recipe. This is most definitely my go-to for French dips. Next up, we're going to have a pizza and movie night. So I also made some wings to go along with that just to finish off what was in my freezer. And I found this new like buffalo seasoning powder at Walmart. So I just kind of followed the direction on the back of that package. I drizzled my wings with some olive oil, and I originally was just going to do half of that package since there's not that many wings in the bowl, but I ended up adding in all of it, and I don't really know how I feel about this seasoning. It was pretty good, but I think I just prefer like a saucy wing compared to like a dry rub. I don't think I would use it again for this purpose, but I do think it would be good in other things, so maybe I will play around with that in the near future. But I just dumped that out into a greased air fryer, and I'm going to cook it at 380 degrees for 25 minutes, flipping it halfway through. So now on to the pizza. I did make a homemade pizza dough, and I will have that recipe in my description box just in case anyone is interested, but any pizza dough will be fine. I just got some store brand pizza sauce, and I am going to get that spread all across the surface. And I haven't said it yet, but this is going to be like a fall / Halloween themed pizza. It's going to be like a candy corn design, although the only thing going on here is just cheese. So I started with some shredded mozzarella cheese, and I'm putting that just in the center of the pizza. I'm just making like a small circle, and then the rest is going to be covered in like a cheddar cheese, just enough to cover the sauce. And then I'm going to take some more pizza sauce, and I'm just kind of going around the mozzarella in a circle, and then I will just take the back of my spoon and kind of spread it out to make it like wider. I probably should have made it a little bit more wide, but it's all good. It definitely doesn't look like it did on Pinterest, but I did try my best. So I'm going to bake that at 500 degrees for about 10 minutes, and then here it is afterwards. I went ahead and sliced it up, and if you look really hard, you can kind of see the resemblance of candy corn, but the kids liked it, so that's all that matters. And I also made like a little veggie tray to go along with it. So we just have some cauliflower and broccoli, and I love this Marzetti like ranch veggie dip to go along with that. I have been wanting this for a little whiles now, so I was glad to finally get that. And here's those wings straight out of the air fryer. They were nice and crispy, and like I said, they were good. I just think they would have been even better with buffalo sauce instead, but maybe that's just me. But here is my plate. I thought it was a simple and fun dinner, and just the perfect like movie night meal. For the last dinner in this video, we are going to be doing some breakfast for dinner. This was my very first time cooking on the Blackstone. Josh got me this for my birthday. It's something that I've been wanting for a really long time, but I just couldn't bring myself to buy it for myself. So I'm very appreciative, and I cannot wait to try out all the recipes on this, and I would love to hear your all's favorite like Blackstone recipes. So I figured I would start out really simple. Like I said, I'm just doing some breakfast. I'm going to be doing some like copycat McDonald McGriddles and also some hash browns. Here's the little overview after I got everything cooked and brought inside. I thought it was a pretty great experience for my first time. I had a lot of fun. So now I'm going to assemble my little McGriddle. So I got a pancake down, a slice of sausage, an egg, a slice of cheese, and I did about like 1.5 strips of bacon, and then of course another pancake. I'm pretty sure this was my first time ever making like at home McGriddles, and they were a huge hit. They were super good, very filling. The hash browns, they were just all right. They really didn't turn out the best. They were just kind of dry and a little bit hard, and I don't know. I don't know what I did wrong. Maybe I overcooked them. Maybe it's because I used the frozen like diced hash browns. I like those in casseroles, but I don't know. If anyone has any tips and tricks for that, it'll be greatly appreciated. I think I would just rather use like real potatoes next time. And then also, as you can see, I have a side of grapes. So that's all I got for you guys in today's video. I hope that it was helpful. I hope I gave you some ideas and made your meal planning a little bit easier. If you made it this far in the video, thank you so much for watching. I hope you all have an amazing rest of your week, and I'll see y'all real soon.